just had one person with the 4 belief system. We have about, 40 people in here? And we have 4 times 40 in here. This room is packed. This room is exploding. This room is overwhelmed. And now we're to sit down and have this conversation with all these beliefs floating in the air. That's why, before we enter into those courageous conversations, we must do self-work. If you really want to have an authentic relationship with this space called diversity, equity, and inclusion, justice, I got to be honest with me. I got to confront my belief system. And I have to reconcile that some of the information that has been passed down generation after generation after generation may have a flaw. It may have a crack in its foundation. And if I'm trying to build an authentic relationship with somebody that doesn't necessarily look like me or talk like me or have the experiences that I have, I got to do some self-work. And I have to be willing to say, some of the information that was shared with me may not be right. It was based off of their history. What is history? Now don't kill me when I say this. The exit doors are really far from me. So I really want to give a little preface to this. But history is not designed to talk about good and bad. It's really designed to tell you an authentic experience that happened in a space and a time and an event and a situation with a certain set of people. Storytelling is based off of the history of that person at that time in that space confronting that issue that impacted them. It's impossible for us to have the same story. But it's very possible for us to be willing to look at the whole picture. Not just one side or the other side. I don't like to talk about sides too much. I like to look at a panoramic view. And if everybody in the picture is not having fair, equitable treatment, then there's something wrong with that picture. And we begin to start talking about, well, what is equity, Dr. Pat? Equity is saying that I'm going to ensure, what's your name? Lauren. I'm going to ensure that Lauren has every tool, resource, or thing she needs to be the latest, greatest version of herself. What's your name?
Audrey.
Lauren and Audrey. Lauren is not going to need the same thing Audrey needs. Audrey's not going to necessarily need the same thing Lauren needs. They both have needs though. And for us to be equitable, I'm going to provide for them what they need to be the best that they can be. So when we begin to start talking about these conversations and entering into these spaces, then I recognize I have some things that I need. And it's not going to be the same thing that you need, and that is okay. The other thing that we have to be cognitively aware of is that we all have a certain amount of emotional bandwidth. You may say, well, Dr. Smile, what is emotional bandwidth? I'm so glad you asked me. Everybody's got it. We all, when we wake up in the morning, have a certain amount of bandwidth, cognitive thinking ability in a course of a day that we use up in a course of a day. And by the end of the day, we do not make good decisions. We just don't. Because we've used up some bandwidth. And oftentimes, we use nearly all of it up. We try to hold on to a certain amount. If you're a parent in the room, you know you got to cook and clean, pick up children, make sure stuff is done at home, make sure homework is done, make sure groceries are picked up. So there's a certain amount of bandwidth we guard, fight, try to keep on, holding on. But then there's this other bandwidth that's getting nibbled on. You may say, well, what's the nibbling? The nibbling